All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 3 of Red Square, Blue Square, your go-to show for BattleBots reaction and recap. And wow is all I have to say after third episode of BattleBots in this brand new season. And so I have 2 very special guests to break it all down, unpack it all, and then wrap it back up and put a nice bow on it to tuck under your tree just before Christmas. It's our Christmas special, if there ever was such a thing for Red Square, Blue Square. So first and foremost, this is your spoiler warning. If you have not seen episode 3 of BattleBots, stop, collaborate and listen, go watch it, and then come back and enjoy the rest of episode 3 of Red Square, Blue Square. So here we go. In the Red Square, from the deep blue sea, the captain himself, Matt Spurk of Kraken. Welcome, Matt. How you doing, man?
I'm doing excellent. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. And in the Blue Square, he is 1-0 and could challenge Pat Mahomes to a hair conditioning contest and maybe even take over some of that Head and Shoulders sponsorship. He is Sam McAmis of the now 1-0 Gruff. Welcome, Sam. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You guys, this episode, wow. There was some very interesting stuff, and we will get to all of it. But, Matt, when I was looking at guests for, this week, I thought, okay, well, we were going to have you on last week, but there's certain people's availability that tends to change, and it's hard to get you guys because once the tapings are over, you scatter and you go back to your day jobs. And so I said, okay, so let's get Matt on. And what about maybe another woman? Who do I got? Well, Leanne was busy, Valkyrie. And so I said, well, doesn't have to be a builder. What about crew? Oh, Lisa. I know Lisa. And then I thought, oh, Matt and a judge. That's probably not going to work at all. So we went with Sam of Gruff. But yeah, Matt, about that judge's decision. No, I think clearly you have expressed, your thoughts and feelings. You're having fun with it on social media and Facebook. But how does it feel to have such a showing of support for you guys and Team Kraken after your first fight of the season?
Yeah, it's been great to have the fan support, and then them kind of rallying behind us and kind of, in the moment we thought we won, and it was great to have kind of the audience reciprocate those feelings and stuff. And it's been great. I really appreciate everybody kind of jumping on and giving us support.
It's got to be a warm, fuzzy feeling this close to the holidays.
Sure.
You guys both have your trees in the background. And Sam, 3 episodes in, you're 1-0 over what some people may thought has been a favorite over the last couple of years. Definitely one of the darlings of BattleBots and Will Bales and Hypershock. How did you feel after that first win of the season?
It was awesome. I was glad that the firework the way that we hoped it would. Because we spent a lot of time over the summer basically tuning that and getting it to turn off and turn back on again as reliably and quickly.
Yeah, I think your quote from this episode is quickly becoming one of my favorite BattleBots quotes ever. You're like, where theirs is orange, ours is blue and hot. And I just love it. It's just, and Matt, you guys have a flamethrower yourselves. You're an orange flame, but also a control bot. And so, I mean, did you guys, are there clubs for different bot designs and styles and primary weapons like that? Do you guys hang out and send each other Christmas cards? Like, how does this work with you guys?
No, but I do. We did actually talk to Gruff last season because we had a real hard time with our igniter that we couldn't keep the igniter lasting. And so we actually switched this season to the same igniter that Gruff was using last season. And it was just a straight of, what are you guys using? Because we can't keep our fire turning on. We can short the gas out, no problem, but we can't get it to light. And they're like, oh, we use these things and they work pretty good if you protect them. And they're like, okay, we're switching to those next year. So
yeah, what was funny is a week earlier, Jim Spentowski from Nightmare had been we were like, what are you guys using? And he's like, we're using these. I'm like, oh, that looks a lot more reliable than a taser.
Yeah, it's always fun to hear pit stories from you guys, and I've been down there to see some interactions myself, and they're never short of entertaining. So for you guys to actually, go back and forth and be like, hey, what are you doing? Like, how can I make this work for myself? Which is very uncommon in the world of competitive sports, no matter what it is. You just don't share secrets like that. But I think there was an interview I did with Peter or Greg or one of the guys from the crew, and they said, this is sports, but it's not your average sports, because if a team needs something, there's no shortage of teams that are willing to, if they have it, donate it or help them figure out a way to resolve the issue. And I think that's great for you guys. Definitely speaks volumes of the integrity of this sport and BattleBots, and just how far beyond the battle box it goes. So props to you guys. Matt, it is December. Dad joke. Which one are you on today? What's the dad joke for today?
Oh, I don't recall what today's joke is now. You got me on the spot. I'll have to look. Give me 30 seconds. Cut to Sam and I'll pull it up.
All right. Well, Sam, while he's looking up his daily dad joke, I think for you guys and going up against Hypershock, they mentioned a big fight, obviously, but they mentioned your guys' fight last year with Tombstone, which was a great fight. I remember that one. And 3 episodes in, I'm pretty sure Tombstone, other than the night that he fought, has come up in every episode. And his record isn't what you would think, and the number of giant nuts he has at home isn't what you would think either. Question, I guess, for both of you, but we'll start with you, Sam. Why is Tombstone and Ray Billings like the measuring stick when it comes to you guys?
When you fight Tombstone, even if you win, you still lose. He's the most destructive robot out there, and it's just, it's just a challenge just to survive against him.
Yeah, I think that obviously Ray is a great sport when it comes to all things considered. He's helping out 2 other teams, including the youngest BattleBots participant, and Tyler Wynn. So this man, it's TV tells you one thing, and then he goes and does a completely other thing. And
he plays the part well.
He does. Yes. I always called Ray everybody's favorite villain. That was actually the nicest guy you've ever met if you've had the privilege of meeting him. So that's great for Ray to keep that going. Since it is Christmas time, and Matt, now, did you find your dad joke? Are we there?
I did. Yeah, I pulled it up. So what's the difference between a poorly dressed man on a tricycle and a well-dressed man on a bicycle?
You got me.
A tire.
And you guys are I'm not going to go so far as to say the king of attire, but Bunny and Dave and I talked about this last week on how there's certain trends you see in sports. You're a football fan like myself. We've seen the Wildcat run its course through the NFL, and whatever another team comes up with, Bill Belichick comes in and he says, hold my clipboard, and then he just destroys whatever they try to do. But for the world of BattleBots, spinners, both horizontal and vertical, are kind of the thing now. And you and I have talked several times about this. You refuse to do that. You love what Kraken is. You guys keep upgrading it and making it more badass than it was the year before, whether it's a paint job or the teeth length being 6 to 8 inches. It doesn't matter. You guys just keep with it. And so obviously there's a lot of respect for you guys and what you do, but you also dress the part. You're always wearing the captain's hat, which I have not quite, movie quality, but it is still a prop here in the Fan Cave studio. Why is it that you love gimmick bots? And I hope that it's not an offensive term to you. I mean it endearingly.
When we were coming up with Kraken originally, it started life as a big spinner. It was going to be this big vert or a big horizontal or a big diagonal spinner. I mean, it was going to be just this obscenely large spinner. And we have an event called Robot Ruckus here in Orlando that we put on every year, and Sam competes at it every year with Gruff. And so he's kicked my butt every year for 5 years before either one of us made it on BattleBots. And I couldn't take a big spinner to compete there at that arena because the arena is not BattleBots arena. It doesn't have 1.5 inch thick glass. It's I think 2 layers of 3/8, so it's 3/4 inch, and that's not enough for these big spinners that we have at BattleBots. So I kind of was just sketching in the notebook, and I kind of drew this little thing that looked like Kraken, and it looked cool. And I actually sent it to Witch Doctor at Hypershock, and I was like, what do you guys think of this? Does this look like something that would get on the show? They're like, dude, if you could make that, you would definitely get on the show. And I was like, well, I can make it, no problem. And I made it, and the sketch that we had originally, and the very first pictures and CAD that we kind of came and made from that, is very close to what it looks like now, and I'm very proud of how it looks, and I like it. And it's a gimmick bot, as people say, but I think we've proven this year we went toe to toe with Black Dragon, and we want to build this robot that just improve it and get it better and get it better. And we're close now. I think we got a couple changes. We learn things every year at BattleBots, and we come back and change the design up and go back better the next year. So I think we'll be better, even better than the following year.
Hey, there you go, man. I mean, that's the goal right there. And I love that you guys have stayed true to that and you keep doing your thing. I love the shirt that you gave me and all the cool swag, and we'll have to add a Gruff one to it. And Sam, you guys, no spinner either, and had a lot of respect coming out of last season with your fight against Tombstone. And now clearly even more respect going into the, first portion of a new season after just one episode. I guess, what is the origin story behind Gruff and why you guys decided to go with the design and the name that you did?
When I started this Gruff 10 years ago, I kind of always liked Biohazard from the original series, and it was inspired by Biohazard, and then I just generally I like being in control, I guess, and so I don't like the I don't like just hitting and then things bouncing around. I mean, that's fun too, but I like to grab and control.
I think control is kind of an underappreciated art in the sport, and it's because you don't get the flash, bang, shock, and awe that you do from spinners, or something like an uppercut, which had a great victory tonight. But I did screenshot the judge's card that they had from the rotator and beta one, and before we talk about that actual fight, it's got here that damage is worth 5. I think that makes a lot of sense. Aggression is worth 3. Control is worth 3, but I feel like it really could go either way. I'm not saying you have an even number, because that's just even harder to kind of split up amongst two, but control, there's so much, as far as it's not just a box you're in, it's the battle box, and there's the pulverizer hammers, there's the kill saws, there's the screws, and if you can use that to your advantage through control, I mean, that's chess now, not checkers. And I feel like a lot of what we see with 7 knockouts or 6 knockouts out of 7 fights, or however many it is, you see a lot of checkers out there. But you guys do a lot of planning and strategy in the pit area. So Sam, when you see a bot like Tombstone, and that it's not one to really mess with or take lightly, and you're not calling them out like Jack is from Endgame, but what kind of strategy goes into your mind when you're prepping for a fight like that?
My strategy for every fight is pretty much the same. It's just run into them and see what happens. I try to make sure I can win head-to-head matchups. I spend a lot of time design-wise and function-wise, making sure we can win head-to-head matchups, and then it's run into them. That's really all that. But everybody says I'm a decent driver or a good driver or whatever, but I'm all I do is point the robot at him and run into it. I don't think I'm a good driver.
So much. I have a new appreciation for you and Gruff now. I just point it at him and go. That's great. But I think Matt kind of does something similar to that as well.
Yep. It's the Yeti technique. You just pull forward on the stick all the time.
So the fight card, episode 3. So we had Copperhead over Gigabyte, a big knockout there. Well done for Copperhead, formerly Poison Arrow. For those of you that know your BattleBots history, they did okay last year, but I felt like this is what I expected to see from a team like Copperhead and Gigabyte. You know, you hear so much throughout every episode about, you know, how Don Hudson and Lockjaw rebuilt the whole bot, even though the design is the exact same. And then you hear that Witch Doctor, they didn't change anything. It's pretty much just, you know, recycling out all the stuff and make sure that the bot is just as good as it was. So there's different approaches, but if you're a Gigabyte bot and it just hasn't been going your way, like with Captain Shredderator, I mean, what do you do?
You've got to keep evolving, because if you stagnate, you die. And, you know, just look at how dominant Tombstone was 5 years ago compared to now. I mean, 5 years ago, he was splattering people all around the arena, and now people have kind of figured out the recipe. If you aren't constantly evolving and aren't constantly trying to get better, you know, you're gonna fall behind.
There's a lot of time between seasons that you guys probably second, third, and fourth guess yourselves, or maybe you have a plan the whole time, depending on who you are. What's your process like?
Pretty much afterwards, like we make a list of all the things, you know, that we think we can do better, and then it's just a matter of implementing them. It's easy to say, you know, fix this problem, but then it's then it's you know, 100 hours of CAD work trying to figure out how to make everything work, trying to figure out how to get the torches, like all the torch systems inside and like protected inside the robot, and still make weight.
What's the most important thing to you and your bot going into a new season?
Survivability, reliability. It's basically, I think it's on everyone's mind, but like we like by our nature, we can't do like a lot of like direct damage, and so it's about attrition, and basically outlasting them and staying fully functional for the 3 minutes.
We got to see Jackpot against Sub-Zero, and this one I thought Sub-Zero had it, and then they just died, and that's what a lot of people don't remember when it comes to this kind of sport, is that you can be dominant, you know, all the way up until 10 seconds left, and that last 10 seconds can be the difference between a win or a loss. But Jackpot, yeah, they really did look like just a regurgitated version of Death Roll, and I'm not knocking them for that. I'm just saying that, you know, we go back to when I mentioned trends and where we're going. So props to them being 1-0. Sub-Zero, I feel like they could almost have a conversation with Hydra like you two did about flamethrowers and whatnot. Like, Matt, what do you think about Sub-Zero? And, you know, is this something where they should rethink their design, or was this just being on the wrong side of luck?
I was heartbroken for them because, you know, the Sub-Zero team, they came down and they fought in Orlando with us this past year, and they fought against Kraken, and they threw us to the roof of that arena half a dozen times, and they just kept chucking our robot. Their flipper worked phenomenally, and it worked the whole 3-minute match. And then they go out to BattleBots, they get one little flip, much lower than what they're capable of, and then the flipper died on them, and I think they were having problems with their valves from us talking to them after the match, and it was one of those big flip now, and this match is over, and the flipper doesn't work, and they crash into the wall, and I don't recall what actually took them out, but you know, that's the way it goes sometimes. You know, things that you test and they work, and you try them at home and they work fine, and then you get into that battle box where everything really matters and it doesn't work. And it's the worst feeling.
All right, we're at that part in the fight card, Beta and Rotator. And Matt, obviously, you know, if you're giving out lumps of coal to people that you feel should be getting them, it's probably the judges, and I'm sure Victor's right there with you. For those of you keeping up with BattleBots, there have been 5 that have gone to decision. 1 has been unanimous. The other 4 have been split decision, and of those 4, 3 have been really controversial. I'd even go so far as to say that the decision between Hydra and Witch Doctor caused some controversy, and it was only overshadowed by the earlier fight, which happened to be Kraken and Black Dragon. But so here we are with, these cards that we have that we've seen from the judges and how they scored it. And the thing that gets me is the non-use of the primary weapon, because there's a few different ways that you can look at this. One is that if you're a cop, you're issued a gun, but you hope that you never have to use it, right? But this isn't a world where you're issued something that you hope you never have to use. There's a lot of process going into the design of something that you have every intent of using. It's like being a wrestler with a finishing move. I understand them if this is a boxing match, waiting to take their shot, and then they do, and they either whiff or it connects and it's great. But if their fear was, well, if we use it and we miss and it connects and then it's gone, like we just wasted that shot. But then that happened anyway, and they weren't even trying to swing it. So for me, the competitive person that I am, I would rather go out there and at least swing. And if I miss, it's whatever, but at least I took my shot, instead of tripping and falling into a guy's uppercut and then getting knocked out and being like, wow, man, I really sat on that, right hook the whole match. Sam, we'll start with you. When you heard the decision, what was your initial reaction, and how do you feel about it now watching the episode play out?
I guess I just don't understand it. I may have missed the part about the scorecards, but I still don't quite understand how it was scored.
So I have the scorecard here, and we'll go over it right now since you're curious and I happen to have it, because this got tweeted out by BattleBots and posted with the spoiler warning. So Lisa scored it in favor of Beta, and she had it 6-5. She gave, out of the 5, 4 for damage to Rotator, 1 to Beta. Makes total sense. Aggression, she gave 1 of the 3 to Rotator and 2 to Beta, and then 0 for control to Rotator and 3 to Beta. Jason scored it 7-4 in favor of Rotator, giving all 5 damage to him, and then it was 2 of the aggression instead of just 1. So that was kind of the difference maker there. And then Derek scored it 6-5 in favor of Beta. Again, the damage being the big one, only 4 to Rotator and then 0 for control. So it looks like their definitions of control are all the same, but I guess aggression and damage was left to a bit of their own personal opinion and interpretation.
Yeah, I think the damage you can score, 5-0 or 4-1. It depends on if all those slams into the walls and stuff did anything to Rotator. But I feel like you have to give Rotator the aggression because they were the only one using their weapon to attack their opponent.
See, I probably would have put more for Rotator in the aggression category too, because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, it's not that they avoided each other, and it's not that one was chasing the other around the battle box. When they're both attacking each other, but yet Beta is kind of picking his spot of where he wants to go, and Victor is just going at him constantly, that would be my tipping point. Matt, having been the victim of a judge's decision yourself, you were there and then you watched it tonight, what would you think about it?
I was livid. I watched the fight in real time with Rotator and Beta. I was being interviewed on another match, and then they said, "Oh, we just got the decision on Rotator and Beta because we don't get to see the decisions in the pits. They cut the feed off. We get to watch all the matches live in the pits, but we don't get to see the decisions." And I was like, "Oh, who won?" And they're like, "Oh, it was Beta." And I was like, "No, strong word way." Because that's a garbage decision. I'm sorry. I'm friends with Jason and Lisa. I'm not friends with Derek online or Facebook or anything, but I am friends with the other two. And I had a lot of fun with Kraken and Black Dragon. I was disappointed at the time, but I get over it because we're fighting the next day, right? But in this case, they got it wrong. I've got the guideline, actually. I pulled it up before this. So damage means deliberate controlled action of BattleBot, either directly or indirectly using arena hazards, reduces the functionality, effectiveness, or defensibility of an opponent. So you look at damage, Rotator damaged Beta's weapon. They took him out, and they had 0 damage on their others, on themselves. So How do you judge damage? This is straight from the guideline, right? I'm not making any of this up. How do you judge damage if only one bot has detectable damage? If one bot inflicted detectable damage on its opponent and its opponent never caused damage in return, a strong advantage should be given to the attacking bot. And it says, how do you assign functional damage? If one bot appears to have less functional damage than the other, the judge should allocate points depending upon the relative amounts of damage. So if you look at that, Rotator has 0 damage, 0. So that means you got to give all 5 damage points to Rotator, and Beta gets none, right? And in the scoring, you've got to get, it's 6-5 is the split, right? It's 11 total points. If you get 6 points, you win. So then you've got Rotator needs 1 point anywhere else. You can give him 1 point for aggression, 1 point for control, and that's it. The aggression is judged on the frequency, severity, boldness, and intent of attacks deliberately initiated by the BattleBot against its opponent. And one of the sub-bullets there is boldness, the risk-taking of each attack. Is the bot attacking with a weapon, which could be damaged, or simply hitting the other bot with an armored wedge? So the boldness of Rotator's attacks was much more than Beta's.
It doesn't say anything there on aggression either about like the effectiveness of the attack. So it doesn't matter like if he's glancing off like the wedge or whatever, like that's still like an aggressive action.
Yeah, when it comes to rules, as specific as you can get, there's a rule in all of sports. Don't let it, don't leave it to the refs, or don't let it go to decision. And which is ironic because the very next fight, it did not go to judge's decision. But if it did, it's the other bot that's winning. It's not Valkyrie that wins. It's Tantrum probably that won.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that people lose sight of too, is that you try to get the knockout, you want a good fight, and you want to avoid a judge's decision, especially in a close one. But when it goes to the judge's decision, you're trusting that not only the judges have a wealth of knowledge in the sport and can pick out all the little details there, but also that the rules and the criteria are very specific and very clearly defined so that it helps them do their job. And I think that was a big kind of moment of clarity tonight watching this whole thing play out is, back-to-back fights, one by split decision, the other by knockout. But if one had gone to decision, you're looking at a completely different winner than who actually won that fight. And congrats to Leanne and Valkyrie, because I know she really wanted this fight and she got it. And this is the name of BattleBots. Sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't. Ray Billings gets hung up on his own chain against Bombshell, and now there's a 16-1 upset in BattleBots. So you just can't predict it. Big Dill and Adam, Big Dill, that was an interesting, series of events. I've never seen them stop a fight and then try to pull the bots apart. In fact, I was thinking, is there ever one where they've both stopped working? And now what is the protocol for that? Like, is it a draw? And I couldn't recall if there was ever a draw in BattleBot. So, Sam, when you saw Big Dill and Adam and they pulled them apart, or tried to, and then they went to judge's decision for however long the fight lasted, is that something that you agree with, as far as there's either a winner or a loser, there is no draws in BattleBots?
Yeah, so it's actually all detailed in the rules. There's a bunch of they try to cover all the situations, and so if it happens early in the fight, they'll refight, or if it happens late enough that they feel the judges have had time to judge it, it'll go to a decision if they can't separate them.
Bots actually get stuck quite often. It happens, in just about every episode. There's been kind of a clever cutaway to Chris and Kenny, and the robots are kind of nestled together, and then they cut back to the robots, and suddenly they're a couple inches apart. And oh, hey, they were able to break free, But through TV magic, they're able to kind of show the fight continuing there.
So much stuff in one episode, and now we're gonna have all these rules experts come out of the woodwork this week on Reddit and Twitter. You just watch. It takes a moment like this for people to be like, it says right here in the book, I'm reading paragraph 3 of chapter 5. It says line 2 right here. It's gonna be great. That leads us to our main event. And hey, look who we got here. I picked a winner this time. Sorry, Maddie Vasquez. We have Sam of Gruff and Hypershock. And I know that the main event, you want it to be as good a fight as possible. Obviously, whoever wins, you're not caring how you won, just as long as you won. But, Sam, is there a certain level of, I guess, professional integrity or common courtesy where you want to win, but you want to win right?
I was just like happy that everything's like seemed to be working, and we were actually really lucky that the fight ended when it did, because when we slammed him into the wall, we actually like that slam like threw off like the remaining chains that were still like working on them. With that same hit, we actually broke our lifter,
Wow.
because we had like a new weapon operator this year, and he was like still. It was a combination of things. He was still like holding onto him as we ran him into the wall, and I had replaced the straps that like actuate the arm, which I only have to do like once every 5 or 6 fights, usually after I fought Shatter. Because he seems to be able to consistently hit like right there in the middle. He's the only one that ever hits the straps there, and he'll put it'll still work, but there'll be big gouges in him, and I'll have to rewrap them. And I wrapped him wrong this time, and so it was like half as strong as it was supposed to be. On the plus side, the torches worked awesome.
I saw that.
So that was the thing that like. Yeah, we spent, a lot of time getting that to work.
Is there a limit to how many flamethrowers you guys can have? Because I haven't seen one that's, a cross on the top of a bot that spins and throws out flames yet. But I don't know if Gruff has reached the max number of flamethrowers you can have.
There's not a limit, but there's a limit to the amount of fuel you can use.
Gotcha.
And so we're limited to 16.4 ounces of fuel, and we burned through that in like 30 seconds.
All right. So we did on episode 1, we did the pulverizer questions, which was, pinning you guys into a wall and asking you some punishing questions. Last week, it was the kill saws, which was, think on your feet and make the hard choice between these. I'm running out of things in the battle box to name questions after. So we're going to go with the screws, and this will be just one question. It'll be the screw you. If you had to give
I'm an expert.
A lump of coal to someone, tell me who and why, and I'll go first. I would give a lump of coal to Farouk, not because he looks better than me, because he doesn't. It's because he's an Eagles fan, and his Eagles beat my 49ers this year. So Farouk gets a lump of coal for that, and yeah, his beard game is a little bit better than mine. This season happens to be. So yeah, he gets coal from me in his stocking. Matt, who are you giving a lump of coal to this year?
I know everyone's expecting me to say one of the judges.
That's what I was hoping for.
but I'm gonna pass on the judges. They've got a hard job, and I've judged tough matches before, and it's difficult. So I'm gonna go easy on them. I've beat up on them enough for them, and I'm still gonna beat up on them about beat and rotator for another week. So they've got another week about me beating up on them. But I'm actually gonna give one to Chris Rose. I don't know what he got in his Wheaties during this season, but he has dealt out some mean burns with the Kenny and his big ears last week, and savage.
Wow. So Chris gets it for being a bully of BattleBots right now.
That's right. He's picking on our poor little builders.
Sam, who are you giving a lump of coal to?
I don't know. I have a hard time like calling out people, so I guess I'll take the easy one and say the judges, since Matt will.
His fight didn't even go to the decision. He's like, I've got 3 lumps of coal I'm giving to one of each of the judges. Sam, that's awesome. Thank you for stepping up and being that guy that we needed you to be right now in that moment. So, Oh, it's been a lot of fun, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's the holiday stretch, which, great, but also a bad thing because, you guys are busy and I don't want to take time away from you and your families. But normally BattleBots is done and aired by now. We don't get a chance to sit down with you and see your lovely Christmas trees in the background and wear silly Santa hats and talk about who knows all 8 reindeer. So I'll take it where I can get it. But you guys have been awesome. Well, thanks again, guys. Sam, congrats on being 1-0 after 3 episodes and your debut fight. It was in the main event. So, it didn't go to decision. Main event, 1-0 over a staple of BattleBots, it seems, and Will Bales and Hypershock. So hope you're walking tall for at least another week until the next episode or your next fight. But thank you again for joining us here on Red Square, Blue Square.
Well, thank you.
All right, guys, that'll do it. So watch for the announcement of when episode 4 will be. I'm not going to bother these guys during Christmas Eve, but there is an all-new episode of BattleBots Christmas Eve. So if you and your family have burned through all the Christmas classics, why not sit down and watch robots fight each other before Santa comes to visit? So until next time, thanks a lot. Have a good night, guys.